Hi friends, welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at this knife. This is the Z070, or Z for Americans and I guess some other nations. This is a modern slip joint knife from the Czech Republic. The manufacturer is Acta Verba, ANV knives, and I think you're going to like this knife an awful lot. Just so that you're aware, I did do a review of this live on Friday, August 1st. The August 1st weekend, or the first weekend in August, is a long weekend for most Canada. It's not a federal holiday, but most of the provinces have that as a holiday. And so I did a live video of this, and it did a live feed on YouTube. I had a dozen or so viewers come in and watch that. And then as I was, going to edit out the front, the waiting period, and the end a little bit, I realized the audio on that video is pretty poor quality. But if you want to go see it, you may have seen a notification. Go to my webpage, not my webpage, my YouTube page, youtube.com/@CanadianCuttingEdge. And then if you hit the live tab, you'll be able to see it there. But the audio's not the best. So I'm going to cover the same points now, and maybe even some better points, because I've been able to rethink some of the things that I was saying there. I don't do like a whole script for my reviews. I've got a sheet with some details and some notes that I refer to, but yeah, that's about all that I do. So if you're interested in a modern slip joint knife that Acta Verba says is made for the world, so this is legal almost everywhere on the planet. If you're looking for something like that, or you just want something neat from some other country, you've seen so many knives out of China from companies that are based just about anywhere. This is made in the Czech Republic, so that's Eastern Europe, and you might be interested in this thing. So come on by and take a close look at the review of the Z070Neo. If you're looking for other knives from them, I've reviewed two of their fixed blades, the P200 and the P300, and I will be reviewing their new P250. It's a size between those two soon, later on this, I'm still calling this summer. It's just the start of August, so yeah, we're calling it summer. Later on this summer, I'll review that knife. I've reviewed a sibling to this knife, the Z050, the Z050, several years ago, and it's a totally different style knife than this one. So maybe you're going to want to see this thing. So stick around. We're going to go to the tabletop. I'll try to do it as close as one take with as little editing as possible, so that the audio is going to be good, but it's going to be more like a live video in that you're going to hear ums and ahs, and there might be pauses, and there might be stuff like that. But that's because it's summer break time. I don't have the energy to do some in-depth editing. So you'll get what you get, but I hope you like it. Stick around. By the way, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, share this video with somebody. Subscribing, sharing, and hitting that like button, those three things really do help the video get promoted. And the best thing is to leave a comment. That really makes the biggest difference to the YouTube algorithm, as far as I can tell. See you at the tabletop. If you want to see the unboxing of this knife, that video is also available above. So check this out. This knife comes in 3 different colorways. Well, there's a 4th colorway now. For the short term. They've got a special edition of this knife only available at anvknives.com. That is a cancer version. So they're making 100 of them. It's got special treatment on the blade. It's got that ribbon put on there as well. They're only making 100 of them. And it comes in the other sort of white colorway. This is the white mint, or the mint white color. It's just got the ever so slight mint green on there. Usually you would just say that that's white, but next to a white sheet of paper, you can see that that's just a slight different color, and it's just got a light little hint of green on it. So there's a forest green kind of color. Here's more of a brighter green kind of color. So you can tell, it's not a dark green. It's very, very just slightly green. And the other one's, you know, pink or rose, and it's just the same. It's got just a slight bit of pink in it. And this is a non-gender specific knife. This isn't a guy's knife and it's not a gal's knife. I think it's really good for just about anybody who wants a small, light pocket knife, and it's quite good that way. Let's start off by looking at the blade a little bit. We've got a drop point blade. It drops slowly, and then in this last, you know, centimeter or so, half an inch, maybe a little less than half an inch, it takes a little bit more of a drop down. And then we've got all belly, full flat grind, you know, between the spine and my fingers. Big ricasso over here, and the badging on it, on this side, it says Z. Let's see if it'll focus. Right there, Z070Neo, and Sleipner, made in Czech Republic. Sleipner is not made in Czech Republic. That is Buder Oderholm steel. It's a version of D2, an upgraded version of D2 steel. So it's a carbon steel. Now, I generally don't like carbon steel on pocket knives, and you know, if they did make a version with a stainless steel, I would prefer that. But at least D2 and Sleipner and you know, the equivalent, it's not super corrosion attractive, or what's the word for it? Corrosion prone. And with this DLC coating on here, that really does help protect it as well. And so I'm pretty happy with this. I use this an awful lot, and there's no wear on that DLC coating yet. Although you can see sort of there's fingerprints on there. It does, I leave fingerprints everywhere. My skin's fairly oily in my hands, and so I leave prints everywhere, but that's not a big deal. That's the badging on this side. This side's got their logo, but that's just a squiggly line. That's an electronic resistor. No, it's an A and then an N with a slight slant and then a V. ANV, Acta non-Verba, and you can see that again here on the spine of the blade. Acta non-Verba, actions, not words. Or as we might say in North America, or probably in parts of Europe as well, actions speak louder than words. And this knife is really good at those kinds of actions. The rest of this blade, we've got a rounded spine. There's no jimping on it. And for once, I don't mind it. This is not bad for what this knife is. And I used it very comfortably without any jimping. But that rounded on the spine goes all the way around to the other side, and then comes around here. There's a bit of a forward choil, which is a really good thing on this knife. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Another thing on the blade is there's a hole through the blade right there, and they've dripped in, and now it's hardened, it's solid. It's a light photophosphorescence material, so that'll glow in the dark. If it receives light energy, then you go put it in a dark spot, and I can't really show it on camera, my camera, the way it picks up light and stuff. I can't really show that, but yeah, that will glow ever so slightly in the dark. Here it says push to open. Now they're calling this a two-hand opening knife, and so I guess it's designed to, you know, hold the handle, and then you push to open and open the blade, and your knife is open. But it also works to open one-handed. I push over that way like you would on a front flipper. Steel's just sticking out slightly there, and the knife is open. So one hand, but two completely separate motions. Same thing to close it. Push on the spine, you know, to get it loose from the double detents, and then you can close it. So you can use it one-handed, but they're calling it a two-hand opening, and it's non-locking, and so that's why it's legal pretty much anywhere in the world. Now, before we talk about the double detent mechanism anymore, let's talk about the handle. This is glass reinforced nylon polymer, and it comes in those two colors. It also comes in black, so a completely black version of this knife. Well, that's really a very dark gray. That's not black, because you can see the color difference between the pivot pin and that. But you want a blacked out version of this knife, they've got that as well. This handle, though, look at the shape of it. It's super organic. It's rounded and smooth. There is texture on here. I don't know if you can hear that. But there is some texture, and I just realized I forgot to put my mic back on my shirt. So I've got the knife back on my shirt, so that first part of the audio should still be okay. I've done that before, and it still turns out okay, but the audio is even better now. I'm just going to keep plugging forward. This handle is very comfortable, so it's got some texture there, which I like. And then this scooped out section here, so if you take a look at it that way, comes in. This is glossy, so you can sort of see that as I turn it, and the light sort of goes over that section. So that's smooth and glossy. Using it with your thumb across the side is actually quite comfortable. Finger on the spine, so if you're going to do some slicing like you would if maybe you were skinning a small animal, or maybe a big one too, that kind of cut is very comfortable. But just using it in your hand and putting your thumb back there and doing some whittling, which is the most of what I did with this knife. It is a really good pocket knife if you want a whittling knife, but you want a pocket knife. Because this handle is so organically shaped, it was very comfortable in hand, and it's not heavy, and I could use it for a very long time without, my hands getting any hot spots or, getting tired and stuff. I really, really liked it for that kind of thing. It also worked well for, cutting up, fruit and vegetables and any other kind of stuff around the garden, around the house. It's just a really good knife design. We'll talk more about the blade specifics later on and the handle. Let's finish off the details of the handle. We've got a small back spacer here. Now there are steel liners in here, and the steel liners, they come around just inset a little bit. They come back, and so this screw goes through the liners, but then the liner comes back to the front. So this back screw here doesn't go through any liners. It's just like a post pin system that goes through there, and then this side goes through the liner. And we've got a stop pin that you can just barely see right there. It's a little shiny, and well, now you can see it in a little bit more detail right there. And maybe I can get you to see the liners in there just so slightly. You can see it right there. There, those liners, it's a nice steel inset liner. And we've got a double detent system. So if you're not familiar with those, I'm not going to do a teardown on this, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But what it is there's in the liner on this side, there's basically effectively a spring with a detent ball right in it, and a hole drilled into the tang on the steel here on the blade, and it pushes in. But they've got two of them, one on each side, pushing in, and that basically holds it in the open position. And it uses, battery went dead again. I was talking about the detent. It takes a fair bit of force to push on the spine of this to, overcome that pressure from those detent balls and those arms, which is a good thing. You can even hear how loud it's clicking when you open it. You get a sort of a sense for the pressure on there. So when it's in the open position, it's almost like it's locked. Of course, it's not technically locked. It's a slip joint, but it takes a lot of force to overcome that. But when it closes, it's just doing that on one side, not on both. And so it's a whole lot less force required to open it. So that's why you can open it with one hand that way. But when you go to close it with one hand, you've got your whole hand on here, and you can push with your thumb and overcome those detents as well. So I like that a lot. It's just very, very well done. The other thing about the handle is this back spacer. It's got a little bit of a seam line down the middle from how it was manufactured. And these screws are T6 screws. T6 button screws, inset. I don't prefer T6, but that's not too bad. They are decent screws, good quality screws, not a lot of play in them. So, I trust those screws. It's not a problem. But as you can see, there's no pocket clip and there's no lanyard hole. Now, I do like this organic shape, and the blade does come fairly close. If you can see it right there, it comes fairly close to the end. So they'd have to make it bigger, or they'd have to make some kind of back spacer that maybe comes out with a little bit of a hole in it that you could use if you wanted to put a lanyard on. I wouldn't mind if they made that an option for people to change at home. Like, that would be really cool. If you'd, in the box, there's another piece of this plastic that you could use, glass reinforced nylon polymer. Shouldn't say plastic, because it's not cheap plastic. This is a good, hard wearing quality material. But that had a lanyard hole, because for it dropping your pocket knives, sometimes, and that's pretty much the only time on a folding knife that I use lanyards. And so that'd be a nice touch. They'd have to do a lot of radical redesign of this handle if they wanted to put a pocket clip on it. So you can check out their other knives if you really want that. Although, yeah, it might be a nice thing. It's not a big, heavy knife. Very comfortable that way. Now, I was talking about why I'm not going to do a teardown. And let's see if I can get it to focus right here. You can sort of see it right in the middle of the screen. You can see I can put my finger back and forth. That's a straight, good size hole right through there. You can easily fit 550 paracord through there if you wanted to. And, then you could use a lanyard around that and pull it out of your pocket that way. But then you have to make sure the lanyard stays back out of the way over here. It's possible, but, that is an option too. But the thing about this is it requires a special tool. There are 6 little little holes around it. You need a special tool with 2 prongs that will actually fit into those little divots, that you'd be able to then spin and loosen that nut off of that pivot screw. There you go. One of the people on the live video later on asked if I could use a watchmaker's ball. It's a grippy rubbery ball that watchmakers use, to, let me just show you, put pressure on the back. You can see these 6 little divots here. This one's got 5 actually. No, it's got 6 as well. They don't generally use a tool to fit into those notches to do it, although they could. They got that ball and they press it on there, and the pressure is able to then spin that. I don't think that's going to work here. And Acta Verba right now has got a vacation shutdown, and so their staff aren't answering my email. I was asking, about that, some questions about that, if they use Loctite or not. I don't know. I don't want to screw this up and mess it up and mar the finish and everything, so I'm not taking it apart to show you. I do wish instead they would have made this with an internal shape, maybe a hex 4, so you could take a hex tool, like, I should have taken this out of the bag. If you're familiar with these, I'm sure you are. Something like this, but the right size that you could put in there and then loosen that off. That's what I would prefer, because I like being able to take my knives completely apart and do my own maintenance on it. Would that void the warranty on this knife? I don't know. I asked them that as well. I think I sent that in the email. So there's that. I believe that there's washers in here, because how close the liners are, I can see it visually, to the tang of the blade there. There's not much space, although they could have done, milled a little bit of a recess into the blade so that ball bearings could be in there. But I really think this has washers in it, and that's about it that they use in there. It stops wherever you stop it, so it's not like a loose, free-flying, blade, which again passes requirements, for worldwide kind of knives. It doesn't take an awful lot of force to move it, but it's not just free-falling. It's not like a gravity that, you shake it and gravity will just shut it for you. I don't mind that either. That's a decent thing. Now, one thing I really like about this that I haven't covered yet is this front choil here. When you're using the knife, these detents really hold the blade, but it takes a lot of force to close the knife. But if you do start to close the knife, your finger sits in this rounded area that is not sharp at all. And so if that happens, and you can hit that pretty hard, smacking it into my hand, it's not cutting anything because, it's not sharp there. So it's a very safe knife, especially if you get your index finger up there. If you're holding it back here and something hits the spine, then it might come over and nip you. You always have to be careful when you're using knives, of course. But that worked great, and this is such a user-friendly little knife. I'm so happy with it. So I've mentioned the 2 sort of cons. This one is probably the bigger one. I would prefer the hex opening in there. But a lanyard option on here isn't really a con, it's just a feature that I'd like to see. And the other thing I'd like to see is, you know, a nice stainless steel option as well. That doesn't mean I am against this in Sleipner, but I'm just, you know, partial to good stainless steel. It doesn't have to be a super premium stainless steel, you know, even if it's like a 14C28N, even a Nitro V or something, although I prefer 14C. But yeah, those are the things. Now let's talk about all the dimensions, weights, and all of that stuff. They say on their website that this is 63 grams. Well, on my scale, and I think my scale is pretty accurate, is 63. They say it's 65. Mine's 63, so slightly lighter, aka better than you know, their stats. So that's kind of good. At least it's not worse. That's right around 2.2 ounces. The sharpness of the cutting edge from the factory. On my best tester, I got 190 best was the average score. I tested it 4 times, 4 places. That's not extremely sharp, but that's quite sharp. That's good for factory sharpness. I like that. And Sleipner, I've got experience with it. It's a very good steel, and I'm sure that it's heat treated properly. Sleipner generally goes between 60 and 64 Rockwell hardness. ANV says they did this knife around 60, which helps retain toughness. If you go too much harder than like 64 or even 64, it's actually going to be a slight bit less tough than it is at 60. So I think that's why they chose 60. I've got no problem with that. The cutting edge length, so between my thumbs, 57.1 millimeters, 2.25 inches. Blade length from the tip to the closest spot on the handle scale is just a bit bigger, 57.9 millimeters, 2.28 inches. The thickness of the blade stock, 2.94 millimeters, which is 0.116 of an inch, so just slightly under 1/8 of an inch. The blade depth this way, right where my fingers are, it's right around 24 millimeters, 0.945, so just under an inch. The thickness behind the grind, so right at the edge, you know, the shiny steel part that doesn't have DLC coating on it. How thick is it right there? For most of the knife, it is right around 0.45 millimeters or 17.5 thousandths of an inch. The last little bit here goes right up to about 20 thou, about 0.5 millimeter. So it's just a little thicker and tougher right at the tip, which is perfectly designed. I really like that. And the edge retention was really good in my testing. I didn't talk about that before. Let me see what's next. The handle. The handle length is 98.1 millimeters, 3.86 inches. But the grip area, because you can grip it up here, I'm going to call the grip area about 9.5 centimeters, about 3 3/4 inches. The thickness of the handle at the thickest spot is 18.4 millimeters, 0.724, so almost 3/4 of an inch, which I like. I usually want knife handles to be under 1/2 an inch, but this one, because of the way it's shaped, that's not too thick at all, in my opinion. The handle depth, that's this way, 25.7 millimeters, so just over an inch, 1.01 inches. The depth of the knife when it's closed in your pocket, or the width, or this dimension, whatever you're going to call it, 29.9 millimeters, 1.18 inches, and the total length is right around 156 millimeters, 6.14 inches. So it's a nice small knife. Very happy with that. How much does it cost? In the United States, most places will have this for $59 US. Knife Center is one place that you can get it. Just look it up. Go to Google if you're in the States and look for it. You'll be able to find it. White Mountain Knives does not have these. You can contact White Mountain Knives and ask them to carry ANV knives if you want them to carry them. If you're in Canada, there is a store that has these in Canada. It's called, is it called Tenda Canada? Anyways, the website is gotenda.com. I'll leave a link down below for all of these. None of these will be referral links. They're just links to it. You can buy directly from them for 89 Canadian dollars. So 90 Canadian and 60 US is fairly close to on par with the currency exchange rates. So definitely if you're in Canada, you can get it there, and then you don't have to worry about anything of the tariff wars going on about importing something, even though it's made from the Czech Republic. Importing from the States might be an issue. I had mine shipped directly from ANV from the Czech Republic, and there was no issues getting it to me, and there was no extra fees. There was no customs or anything. I can't guarantee that for you, but it worked just fine. So if you want to buy it directly from ANV, they don't have a Canadian currency, but there it's 68 US. So it's an extra $9 US over the American price. So you do that if you want to. That's 64 euros for Europe. That's 50 British pounds. And of course, if you are in the Czech Republic, it's 1,499 Czech crown. So there you go. If you want the cancer exclusive version with the special blade thing, I'll try to set a picture in here of that from their website. That's a little bit more. That's about 81 US. There's only 100 of those made if you want to get one of those. So what do I think of this thing overall? I am a big fan of this knife. I didn't think I would like it as much as I would. The main thing I like about it is how comfortable it is in the hand for extended use. That's a big deal for me. Sometimes, it makes no difference. You're using a knife, it's no big deal. But if you're going to have a knife that you're going to be using maybe out in the garden, maybe sitting by a fire whittling wood, whatever. If you want something that you're going to be comfortable having in your hand for a long time, and you want something super non-threatening, they even say on their website, gentle and calm impression. Remember, English isn't the first language there, but that makes complete sense. This thing, puts off or carries with it a gentle and calm feeling. It doesn't feel threatening. You pull this out and you're going to use it. There's a bit of a clicking sound there. Somebody might look over, but it's not a scary looking knife. It looks a little bit like a paring knife for your kitchen. It's quite nice and it cuts well. And Sleipner steel is a good carbon steel. Very, very happy with that. That strong detent's really nice. And, the weight, 2.2 ounces, 63 grams. This is a nice little knife. Hopefully somebody from ANV is watching. Actually, I know that they'll be watching. Hopefully, in the future, they might consider doing an upgrade to that. And maybe even, to the option for the backspacer here for having a lanyard for people that really want it. But like I said earlier, you could do a lanyard through this hole if you really want it that way. And, have it sit in your pocket that way. You just have to be a little more careful that the lanyard doesn't get in your way when you're using the knife. But I basically carried it in my pocket. Now, this glass reinforced nylon, I did have a marker in my pocket, or I had marker on my finger or something. I don't know how it happened, but I've got a little bit of ink staining right there. It was not like that from the factory. I think you might be able to see that. And another spot right there. Now, I haven't tried cleaning that off with alcohol, so I'll put text on the screen. I'm going to try that right after I finish recording this to see if I can wipe that off. And if it comes off nicely, I'll even add a picture in here afterwards. So, yeah, some people might be wondering, do a little size comparison. I recently reviewed this. This is the Civivi Elementum slip joint version, which I spoke quite highly of when I did the review. So it's a little bit smaller than that. But as you can see, it's got a lot of differences. And although I like this knife quite a lot, I found this one to be actually a fair bit of an improvement for actually using. It doesn't have a lot of flash. It doesn't have a lot of, the hype kind of appeal. But if you want a user, and you want something that is legal just about anywhere in the world, it's really, really hard to beat this knife, in my opinion. ANV has got a home run on their hands, and while I want a little change here and there, this is not bad. This is a pretty good choice. If you are in Canada especially, ANV wants more sellers to carry ANV knives. Contact your favorite knife seller and just ask them if they would, consider carrying Acta non-Verba knives made in the Czech Republic. I think right now is the perfect time to talk to knife retailers about that, since we're going through this tariff war with the American president. You know, I think stores are going to be open to getting knives that are made somewhere other than the United States, you know, adding them in. I'm sure they're not going to stop carrying American knives, and I'm not suggesting that, but that they're going to add some more worldwide kind of knives. And ANV is a company that makes modern knives, not just old style classic knives, you know, which I like too, but they make modern knives at a good price, at a high quality, and I think your retailer might be interested once they know about this company. So write or call to your favorite knife retailer and ask them to carry these knives. That would be a really good thing. So there you go. The ANV Z070 or the Z070, and good little pocket knife. I'm happy with it. Z070Neo. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.